The university campus was buzzing with excitement that morning. Everyone was talking about a special guest coming to visit, a famous young CEO who had taken the business world by storm. You walked through the courtyard, blending into the crowd like everyone else. No one had any idea that the man they were so excited about was your boyfriend John Jungkook. Jungkook was the youngest CEO of a massive company and had a face that could stop anyone in their tracks. But what people didn't know was that he was also your boyfriend. You and Jungkook had decided to keep your relationship private, away from the public eye. Today, though he was stepping into your world and you couldn't help but feel both nervous and excited. You headed to the cafeteria for a coffee before the event when you overheard a group of girls sitting at a nearby table. They were giggling and talking so loudly that you couldn't help but listen. Have you seen John Jungkook's pictures? He's so handsome, she said, practically swooning. Handsome? He's perfect, rich, successful, and hot. I'm telling you, if I play my cards right, I can totally get his attention, she said, flipping her hair. You paused, holding your coffee cup tightly. They had no idea that Jungkook wasn't available and that he was already yours. The third girl leaned forward, whispering as if sharing a big secret. I heard he's single. He probably doesn't have time for a girlfriend, which means we have a chance. Your lips twitched into a small smirk. If only they knew the truth. Gracie again flipped her hair dramatically. You know, I'm pretty sure he will notice me. I just need to ask him something smart during the Q&A. Men love confident girls. Oh, please, she said, rolling her eyes. He will notice me, just wait and see. You took a deep breath and tried to keep your cool. It wasn't worth it to argue with them. They would find out soon enough. By the time you reached the auditorium, most of the seats were taken already. You slipped into a spot near the middle, pretending to blend in. The same group of girls sat a few rows behind you, their chatter continuing. What if he looks at me while he's speaking? She whispered. He will. I will make sure of it, she said confidently, and then both of them giggled. You couldn't help but roll your eyes. Jungkook was coming here for the event, not to find a date. Still, their comments stung a little. The room suddenly went quiet as the doors opened and Jungkook walked in, surrounded by the event organizers. John Jungkook. He looked every bit the CEO he was, tall, confident, and dressed in a sharp black suit that fit him perfectly. His gaze swept across the room, and for the briefest second, his eyes met yours. You caught the faintest hint of a smile, one only you could recognize. He's even better looking in person, and he's looking this way, she said excitedly. You smirked to yourself. If only they knew he wasn't looking at them. The event began and Jungkook stepped up to the podium to give his speech. His deep, steady voice filled the room as he talked about his journey, the challenges he faced, and how he built his company. You couldn't help but feel proud as you watched him. He was so composed, so sure of himself, and the audience hung on to every word he said. The girls behind you were no exception. Did you see that? He totally looked at me just now. You're imagining it. He was looking at me. You bit your lip trying not to laugh. Jungkook's eyes had drifted to you several times during his speech, and you knew it wasn't a coincidence. When the Q&A session began, the girls practically jumped out of their seats to line up at the microphone. Yasmin finally got a chance. She smiled sweetly before asking, Mr. John, your success is so inspiring. How do you balance your work life and personal life? Do you even have time for relationships? You raised an eyebrow, waiting to see how Jungkook would answer. He smiled politely, his expression calm. It's all about knowing your priorities. I make time for what's important. For a brief second, his eyes flickered towards you, making your heart skipping a beat. After the Q&A ended, the event wrapped up and the audience applauded loudly. As Jungkook stepped off the stage, the girls behind you made their move. "You were amazing up there," she said, smiling brightly as she walked up to him. "Thank you," Jungkook replied politely, though his tone was distant. Tracy flipped her hair and stepped closer. "Would you mind taking a picture with me? It's not every day you meet someone like you." "Of course," he said, keeping his professional look intact. Watching from a distance, you clenched your fist. Enough was enough. You weren't the jealous type, but seeing them swan Jungkook like this was getting on your nerves. You walked up to Jungkook, weaving through the crowd that had formed around him. Your steps were quick, purposeful, and loud enough to catch the attention of the group of girls hovering near him like moths to a flame. Their laughter and chatter ceased as they turned to look at you, their smile fading. The confusion on their faces was almost comical. "Excuse me," you said firmly. Your voice was loud enough to slice through the awkward silence that followed. Your eyes locked with Jungkook's, and a flicker of amusement danced in his gaze as though he already knew what you were about to do. "I need to borrow him for a moment." The girls exchanged bewildered glances, Yasmin stepping forward with a forced smile. "I'm sorry, but we are talking to him right now," she said, her tone laced with fake politeness. You raised an eyebrow, barely sparing her a glance. "Trust me, this won't take long." Before anyone could protest or question you further, you reached out and grabbed the silk tie hanging perfectly against Jungkook's suit. With a tug, you pulled him down towards you, erasing the small distance between you. His eyes widened for a split second, but the surprise melted into amusement almost instantly. And then, without hesitation, you leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't just a quick peck or a fleeting touch of lips. It was bold, confident, and deliberate. The world around you seemed to fall away as your lips met his. The murmurs and gasps from the crowd disappeared, replaced by the steady rhythm of your heartbeat and the way Jungkook instinctively tilted his head, deepening the kiss ever so slightly. The room fell completely silent. When you finally pulled away, Jungkook's face was still close to yours, his dark eyes sparkling with amusement and something warmer, something softer. His lips curved into a smirk, the kind that made your heart flutter and your knees feel weak. "Well," he murmured, his deep voice low enough for only you to hear. "That was unexpected." His smirk widened and his hand came up to brush his fingers lightly along your jaw. "Not that I'm complaining, of course." He straightened up, letting go of his tie and turning to face the stunned group of girls. The expression on their faces were priceless, their eyes wide, mouths slightly open as they struggled to process what had just happened. "What the hell did you just do? Are you insane?" Clearing your throat, you smiled sweetly, the kind of smile that was equal parts charming and victorious. "By the way, he's my boyfriend." The reaction was instant. One girl dropped the phone she had been holding, the sound of it clattering to the floor echoing in the room. Another girl's jaw practically hit the ground. Chloe, one who had spoken earlier, the confident one, looked like she had just been told Santa Claus wasn't real. "Boyfriend?" She shuddered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Jungkook confirmed before you could respond, his voice carrying a calm certainty that left no room for doubt. He reached out and wrapped an arm around your waist, pulling you again aside. "She's my girlfriend, my strength." His words were simple, but the way he said them, his tone possessive, his gaze unwavering, made it feel like a declaration, a claim that no one could contest. Group of girls exchanged awkward, almost panicked glances. The confidence had vanished, replaced by disbelief and embarrassment. I, "We didn't know," she mumbled, her voice trembling as she fidgeted with the hem of her dress. Another girl, Chloe, looked at you, her face red with humiliation. "You should have said something earlier. We didn't mean anything by it." You tilted your head, your smile widening. "Well, now you know." The room remained silent, the awkward tension thick in the air. Jungkook's grip on your waist tightened slightly, a subtle sign of reassurance. Is there anything else? Jungkook asked coolly, his gaze shifting to the girls. His tone was polite, but there was a sharp edge to it, as if he was daring them to say anything more. They shook their heads quickly, mumbling excuses as they stepped back one by one. It didn't take long before they dispersed, disappearing into the crowd like they couldn't leave fast enough. As soon as the girls were out of earshot, Jungkook turned to you, his smirk returned. You know I could have handled that myself. You crossed your arms, raising an eyebrow. Oh, really? Because it looked like you were enjoying the attention. His laughter was deep and genuine, the sound sending a pleasant warmth through you. Maybe a little, but not nearly as much as I enjoyed that kiss. He teased you. You rolled your eyes, but your cheeks heated under his gaze. I wasn't about to stand there and let them flirt with you. His expression softened and he reached up to brush a strand of hair away from your face. You know you never have to worry about anyone else, right? You are the only one I see. The sincerity in his voice made your chest tighten, and for a moment you forgot about everything else, the crowd, the event, the girls. It was just the two of you standing there in your own little world. Good, because you stuck with me, Mr. CEO. Jungkook grinned, leaning down to press a quick, gentle kiss to your forehead. I wouldn't have it any other way. If you're free from the classes, then would you like to go on a date cautiously? He said, extending his hand, making you giggle. I need to think. You pretending like thinking and then smiled before giving your hand in his. I'm ready, he smiled. And as the two of you walked out of the room together, hand in hand, you couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. You didn't just make a statement, you made it clear to everyone that John Jungkook was yours and yours only.